What's up, everyone? How you guys doing? And by the time you see this video, Mavuika might have been remarketed. But anyways, we know that she's coming. And before she arrives, I think let's talk about the current archons that we have in the game, and to see how they are doing right now, how they're faring. It's not going to be a guide into every character. Just talk about them briefly and how they are currently faring in the landscape of Genshin Impact. So yeah, let's talking. Let's get this video started. Okay, so let's talk about the very first Archon that we meet. Venti, animal bow character. The main thing about Venti is about crowd control and grouping. He does that through his skill and his burst. His skill, basically, he's able to summon a wind domain that is able to displace and basically floats up your enemies. So it's pretty nice against small enemies. The same thing with his ultimate, the Wind's Grand Ode. Basically you create a storm eye, a black hole that's able to suck in small enemies, and you're able to do a lot of continuous animal damage. And if you're able to infuse the Storm Eye with Hydro, Pyro, Cryo, or Electro, you are able to also do that damage as well. So it is very, very nice. You know, Venti has a kit that screams small mobs, AoE, right? I think the problem with Venti, though, and I think many people would know this by now, is that Venti, not every enemy is able to be absorbed or to be sucked in by the ultimate, or even displaced by the skill. You know, bosses, some elites, they're not able to be displaced or to be sucked in. They're too heavy. And I think that that's where Venti doesn't shine, right, against these kind of contents, right? When the content in the game is suited for Venti, people always say that he is the best character for these content. And I do agree, right? I think Venti made his name with freeze teams in the early days, and Venti was very, very good for those game modes, especially in the early Abyss, right, when there are a lot of small mobs. But as Genshin has started to add in like bosses, or even like more elites, I think that's where Venti's value has definitely diminished. And of course, you know, you can say that, oh, Venti can still hold the Veritas and Verna, he can still shred elemental resistance, and that's very, very nice. But there are also other animal characters that can do that and do more as well. For example, Kazuha is able to also group enemies, but Kazuha is also able to give the teammates damage bonus depending on the elements that are swirled. And I think that, and then, you know, if you look at other characters like Sucrose, you know, Sucrose can do the similar as well. And so I think that the problem with Venti is that you know, he is very gatekept by the content that he is facing. I think that's very, very unfortunate. I don't know whether this was like a product of like Hoyoverse's early character design, but you know, and even the constellations don't really do much. Yes, you do have a lot of elemental shred from the E2 and the E6, I know, because but the problem is that there isn't a lot of situations where you want to use him alongside, like, okay, first and foremost, he's not run as the main DPS, so there are not a lot of situations where you would do that. At the same you will really appreciate the animal shred. But at the same time, he's also not really much used as a support for other animal characters. So I think that Venti's in a very weird spot where he is very dependent on the content, and I think that when that is against him, he tends to fall off pretty hard. I think it's very, very unfortunate because he is the first Archon, and I think that maybe it was an oversight in the way that Hoyoverse designed characters. I'm not saying that he's bad, but I think that when you factor in opportunity costs, when you factor in that your Primojades are precious, right, and you only have a finite amount of them, and then it becomes a situation of like, should I pull a Venti, or is another character going to benefit me better with the same amount of resources? So that's where I feel about Venti. I think that he's a good character. Unfortunately, he isn't in the right situation to make use of them. Now, Zhongli. So Zhongli, a little bit of history, he's the only character that got buffed in the game. Or like actively buffed, right? Because people weren't happy with his initial release. But what does Zhongli do, especially since Zhongli is rerunning in 5.2? right? Zhongli is a shielder first and foremost, creates a shield, and we all know that shields are very, very good because they negate damage. But they also, another underrated part is that shields also provide super armor. Basically, when you get hit, you don't either don't stagger or you don't get knocked back. And I think that this is really, really nice because, you know, for characters that, you know, especially for your main DPSs that uses their basic attacks a lot, you know, you won't get staggered, you won't get interrupted. And especially for characters like your Emiya, who their biggest damage comes from the last attack of the attack chain, right? You don't want to dodge because you don't want to restart your rotation, or if you don't want to you might get hit, right? Then you can't attack. So I think Zhongli's shield definitely helps out quite a lot. And the shield is actually one of the strongest, if not the strongest in the game, right? So definitely helps out in doing that much damage. And something that's not really used that much, but something to take note is that the pillars that he summoned in his skill can resonate with other geo constructs, right? So something, if you like Chiori, you know, it provides you with the second the other door for the door's name, Tomato, I think. All right, so it's really, really nice. The shield also does have the perks of elemental rest and also physical rest as well. So definitely will help improve your damage. So not only are you sustaining yourself, you also do additional damage as well. And the ult is a really big nuke, and it has a very low cooldown. Now, I think the main thing that people talk about the ult is the long animation time. It's very cool, right? It's basically a meteor from the sky. But the problem is that Zhongli, you know, it takes time, right? And, you know, in Abyss, time is precious. So yeah. And Zhongli's shield skills mostly with HP. And it's nice because it does improve your attacks as well. So let's say if you don't want to go for a full shield board build, like you don't want to just build up like triple HP on your artifacts, right? You want to run like a crit weapon, right? It actually is nice because, you know, you're able to also play as a sub DPS as well, right? Obviously less damage negation, but, you know, he's able to contribute more damage. You know, you kill the enemies faster, you basically clear your runs faster, right? And I don't really talk much about constellations, but he does have very good vertical investment. I think it's his C4. C4 is okay, right? You increase your petrification, which I forgot to mention. His ultimate does have a petrification, basically like a stun, right? Basically they can't move, right? And the C4 extends that. It uses a bigger AoE, but the C2 is where it's at, where with the C2, the ultimate, right, you're able to cast the shield immediately. So it kind of like bypasses one of his like weakest traits, which is the animation time, because then that means that you can kill two birds with one stone, right? Casting the ultimate, you can also effectively cast a shield onto your team. So all in all, I think Zhongli is very evergreen in the sense that he lasts. I think that while Zhongli may fall off sometimes, like he may not be like top tier or like number one, Zhongli will always be hovering there because of the way that he's able to support his team both defensively and ultimately offensively, right? The best offense is a great defense sometimes, right? I know the saying is the other way around, but sometimes by protecting your team, right, you're able to output more damage because you won't get staggered. You're able to petrify, that means they won't hit you, and then you're able to shred, obviously, part of his shield kit. And so Zhongli is one of those evergreen characters. I think it's a character that will always be here. He may not be like number one, but he'll always be in the conversation. And I think that that's really a very good trait for a character to have, for a character to have long-lasting value in that sense. All right, I think this is going to be the most complicated character I'll be talking about, Raiden Shogun. Raiden Shogun, initially when she came out, she was played mostly as the main DPS. The skill has incredible electro application. Basically, you will be able to put out the Eye of Stormy Judgment, right? And then every time you do an attack, you do a coordinated electro attack as well. So you're able to do your normal attacks, and you're also able to do some additional electro. Now, the main part of a kit comes from the ult, or at least on release. We'll talk more about that later. But on release, her ult basically infuses her normal attacks into electro, and then she does a very big initial burst of attack, and then you're able to attack as a main DPS with her. So the thing about Raiden Shogun is that she's one of the unique characters because she scales off energy recharge, right? If you look at one of her talents, with the higher energy recharge, you get more electro damage bonus, which is why most people will say that, oh, in most cases, you will run an an attack goblet, and then energy recharge sense, because or the way like the damage multiplier works, right? You rather have you rather have balanced out multipliers in your attack and your electro damage, rather than just solely focusing on electro damage. And so I think that Raiden Shogun is complicated because initially main DPS, people use her, but as the versions go on, people talk about like, oh, like her power, her damage is slowly falling off. But then people started to experiment with her, and I think this is where Raiden Shogun's greatest strength comes about, is that Raiden Shogun is very, very versatile, right? One day you could use her as a main DPS, and I think that especially if you have the C2, not necessary, right? You can still play her as C0 as a main DPS, but that obviously her damage is not as high as like other characters. But if you like to go with as a support or sub DPS build, like she does very, very well in hyper bloom teams, because the skill in particular will help trigger the hyper bloom reaction, right? And she's able to also provide energy, so you get so it's pretty good in that aspect as well. So and energy and also damage through the burst, so it's really, really nice for Raiden. I think Raiden these days, unfortunately, is less valuable than Zhongli, but I think that Raiden still has like a special place in a lot of people's roster. I'm not saying that you should pull for her when she rerun comes, but I think that Raiden in particular has, it's a character that is designed well, in the sense that she is able to adapt to certain situations. Maybe you don't want to pull for constellations, but you still want to use her, then she has a niche in other places. I think that that's where she shines, right? Raiden is able to be able to be able to play differently depending for the team comp. I think that is something that not a lot of characters have, right? I mean, there's some characters that you can play healers and main DPSs, but I think that for main DPS to be versatile, I think it's really something that is rare, and I think that that's what I appreciate about Raiden Shogun. And so, like I said, maybe not as valuable as Zhongli in the long run, but I think that she has a place, and I think that if you like her, Raiden, right? If you're a Hoyoverse fan, Raidens are everywhere. Something that you may want to consider. Nahida. So I made a Nahida video recently, so I'm not going to talk too much about her. But in my opinion, Nahida is a very, very good character because, well, she's not really a good character. She is one of the best characters. And I've talked about in the past video about her elemental application. I think for dendro reactions in particular, elemental application is very, very important, and for Dendro, she is the best applicator by far. She's able to use her skill to mark enemies, and then you are whenever you proc either a reaction or you damage them with your cause, you are able to reapply the damage through the tri-karma purification, right? Basically just another instance of attack, and the instance of attack will apply more dendro, right? Because we all know, right, when characters have the elemental aura, when you do a reaction, they will disappear. And so by constantly reapplying, right, she's able to upkeep the reactions for the team, right? And of course, as a catalyst user, she has access to dendro attacks on her basic, and so there's just another added layer of it as well. And her ultimate just basically supplements the skill, right? Basically, you either extend you either extend the ult, you increase the damage, or you reduce the tri-karma purification cooldown, depending on whether you have pyro, electro, or hydro characters. And the very, very nice thing about Nahida is that she can be played on field as a driver, but she can also be played as a sub DPS or as a support, because she's able to not only provide a lot of dendro application off field, but she's also able to share elemental mastery through, I think it's this one, right? She's able to share elemental mastery of the highest EM characters. Most of the time it is Nahida, because you generally want to build Nahida close to 1000 EM. And so Nahida just provides a lot for the team. Now, in one of my last videos, I talk about whether Nahida is a mass pool. In my opinion, I don't think there are any mass pools in Genshin. But if there is a character who is close to that status, it is Nahida. Because especially if you're playing in Dendro-related reactions that have EM scaling, so basically most reactions except for burning, right? You do appreciate Nahida in most situations. And of course, the infamous C2, right, where you're able to crit non-critable, basically, for those of you who don't know, transformative reactions like Hyper Bloom, like Burgeon, they usually can't crit, but the C2 helps you to crit at a limit, right? 20% crit rate and 100% crit damage, but you basically do more damage. And for the other reactions, you also decrease the defense. So Nahida's, if you're playing Dendro and there's a constellation that you want, C2 is definitely the way to go. Right? People always say, what is Sino's best constellation? Nahida C2. What is Cloren's best constellation? Nahida C2. What is Nilo's best constellation? Nahida C2, so on and so forth. And I think you get the drift. Now, Furina is very, very unique, right? For those who don't know, Fontaine has this mechanic about HP manipulation, and basically Furina really pushes that boundary to the max. Basically, her skill summons the salon members in her arc, in her Usia alignment, right? Which is the state that you should be in most of the time. But basically, Furina, the three summons do a lot of damage. But what happens is that they drain a lot of HP, which to some people say, oh, that sounds very bad. But in conjunction with her ultimate, right? Her ultimate basically gives you damage bonus and also healing bonus, but right? But damage bonus based on how much HP has been gained or lost. Right? And so it really ties in all together, because you are able to manipulate your HP down to 50%. They won't drain out below 50%, but you're able to manipulate the HP of your characters. And then if you have a good healer like Jean for Baiju, for example, you're then able to bring them all up. And that counts because every percent of health manipulation counts towards the ultimate, right? And the damage bonus at max stacks, so you need to have 300 stacks, so you basically need to manipulate up to 300% of health, right? So if let's say from full to 50% for 4 characters through the salon members, it is only 200%. So the one thing about Furina is that you need the healer to be able to heal everybody up, right? That's why Jean got very popular, because you want healing so that you're able to manipulate your HP and get the 300 stacks full, right? And so with Furina, for example, she does do good damage, but she also is an excellent buffer for your team. Right? The only thing that she doesn't buff are transformative reactions. So you play on Bloom teams, she's not going to increase the damage of Bloom, right? But she's able to increase the damage of like your main DPSs and really do a lot of damage. And I think that Furina is great. Furina is the only character I really put a constellation for. That is how good I think Furina is, right? And I didn't put a constellation because she's not good at C0. On the contrary, she's so broken at C0 that I just want to make her even more cracked. But so yeah, but Furina's constellations are really good in general. Well, C1 gives her a higher limit, right? And you start off with we start with 150, so you definitely get about 100% damage bonus, which is nice. And then the C2 is like just crack, you increase your HP by a lot, you increase the fan effect stack, so you get fan effect stacks faster, and it's just a lot more damage because more HP means that the salon members hit harder. And so Furina, I think, is really great. Remember that the Pyro Archon, right? Even whether she's a main DPS or sub DPS, right? Unless she's a support, which I doubt it, right? If she's a main or sub DPS, right? She's going to make use of both the damage bonus and also the vaporized reaction. So it's going to be really nice to see how she's going to fare. I think that most people will say that she's on par with Nahida. Obviously there's some caveats to using her, right? And I don't think it's just a must pull, but she is very strong. 75% at base at C0 is incredibly high, and I think that as long as you put her in, you just need to be very mindful of the team comps, right? You need a healer, but once you put the pieces together, I think it is going to be an excellent character for many rosters. And I think that many people will say that, oh, in the if you're an early game player, you put for Furina, it's a little bit wasted. I disagree, because even if you don't max the fan fast stacks, even if you, let's say you have like a 40%, right? For the max you can get on an elemental goblet is 46%. If you're able to get 40-50% easily without like trying, I think that is really nice for many players. All right, and so Furina, I've said a lot about her. I think she's one of the best characters in the game, and I would definitely if I wasn't really playing, if I started a new game, I think she's one of the characters that I would pick up, right? And I think she's great, and I think that especially with the Pyro Archon, I think that she's going to have a lot more value going forward. But what do you guys think, right? How do you guys think about the Archon? I especially want to know your feelings on Venti and Raiden Shogun especially, right? Because I think that these two are very highly contentious characters in the current landscape, and I would like to hear your opinion on them. So let me know in the comments down below. Once again, if you didn't watch my previous video, I'm actually away. I won't be here for until the weekend. So hopefully you guys stay safe. Right, I'm serving my reservists, my army in-camp training, so I'll see you guys when I'm back, right? And so yeah, leave down the comment section below. I'll reply to them even though I'm away. So yeah, take care, stay safe, be good to yourselves and the people around you. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.